Welcome to CryptoPi, your hub to transform trading using technical analysis and risk management. Today we will talk about 4 Bitcoin indicators that actually work to identify top and bottom of Bitcoin during a 4-year cycle. Let's go to the Bitcoin chart in the USD pair. I have it on the weekly time frame, and the indicators which I will be discussing are: one of them is the Pi cycle top and bottom indicator, then 200-week moving average, also for top and bottom indicator, and at the end 2 bonus indicators. Alright, let's start. The first one, which is Pi cycle, was developed by Philip Swift, and it is available on Bitcoin Magazine Pro. The idea here is that there are 2 moving averages. One of them is 111-day moving average, and the other one is 350-day moving average, but it is multiplied by a factor of 2. So whenever the orange, which is 111-day moving average, crosses over the green one, that is the slow moving average multiplied by 2, it indicates the Bitcoin top for that cycle. If we keep this as an exceptional case for Bitcoin, the early years, we see that there were 2 tops which were identified by the Pi cycle indicator. In 2018, the same thing happened. Whenever the orange crossed above the green, we identified the top of Bitcoin in the Pi cycle indicator. And likewise, in the year of 2021, which is here, and we identify another top. However, the actual top, if you consider from all-time high, was slightly higher than what was indicated at Pi cycle crossovers, so at the crossovers of moving average, but the downtrend had already begun, and probably this was just a pullback. Now, how do we get this indicator on TradingView? There are, like I said in previous videos, there are numerous community indicators. And if you would search Pi cycle, top and bottom, you will come across various Pi cycle top and bottom indicator. I have selected one of those, and let's switch it on. The first one, since we are discussing Pi cycle top, is marked by red, the 2 shades of pink, and whenever there is a crossover, we can identify here the top of the Bitcoin, and here as well. In the current cycle, we are still far away from the crossover of the crossover of the fast moving average with the slow moving average, but this can happen very quickly, as we see that in this case we were still far away, but within few months, so from August until March, within a span of 6 months, the parabolic phase of Bitcoin had begun, and we had reached the top according to Pi cycle indicator. For Bitcoin bottom, it's the same idea, where we have the moving averages. Let's maybe take another indicator where we have 471 as one of the moving average, which is the slow moving average, and the other one is 150, which is the fast moving average. And Pi cycle bottom indicator happens when the red moving average crosses under the green moving average. However, when it crosses under, it does not exactly identify the bottom, but I would consider it as the accumulation phase of Bitcoin. As you can see here, in the last cycle, the Pi cycle bottom was indicated here. However, it went further down up until 15,000. So it was indicated at 20,000, and it went further down to 15,000. The best way to strategize the bicycle bottom indicator is when the bottom has hit, it's time to start accumulating, and when the parabolic indication is signaled, that is when the red crossovers the green, that's time to consider that Bitcoin bull run has begun. All right, so that was all for the bicycle bottom indicator. Now moving on to 200-week moving average. If you go back to the Bitcoin Magazine Pro website, the 200-week moving average acts as a support for the price. So the price comes down to 200-week moving average after it has reached its all-time high for the cycle. Sometimes it goes slightly below, like it happened during the Corona crash, and in the last cycle it stayed below for quite some time. In most of the bottom indicators, we cannot find the exact bottom, but rather we can identify when the accumulation phase has begun. In case of tops, it is more or less the same, but over there we have to start taking profit at different levels when we see moving averages are very close to each other. Or as soon as they have crossed, then it's good to take some profit already, because it is quite likely that there will be a reversal after bicycle crossovers. Now over here, 200-week moving average acts as the support, and what you see here are the color-coded price actions. So whenever it reaches the red color code, or the price reaches the red indication, it is quite overbought, and there is a good chance for Bitcoin to have a reversal. But as you see here, no indicator is perfect, but they are pretty helpful here. It does not reach to the red color code, but it reaches to green and light green, which is somewhere around this region. It starts from 8, goes up until, let's say, 11, and then the reversal begins. Even though the price went above after a few months, the color code said the market was already in the reversal direction. So I would not use this to trade exactly, but already we'll start taking profit as soon as we see some green or some overbought territories. But of course, this one acts as a very good indicator to identify when you can start accumulating Bitcoin. Obviously, this is not a financial advice. Do your own research, make your own strategies. This is mainly for trying out, discussing various strategies which can be used for accumulation and distribution of Bitcoin. All right, so 200-week moving average as the bottom, we see that it works pretty similar to bicycle bottom, where the bottom is in and there is accumulation phase going on. Bicycle bottom also tells us that there can, after the crossover, which happens between red and green, so when the red is above the green one, we again see, so which is basically the fast moving average above the slow moving average, we see a parabolic phase which starts. Now, how do we use 200-week moving average for the top? We just discussed it for the bottom. Now for the top, I got to learn about this from one of the videos of Benjamin Cohen, and in the video the explanation is, all right, but let's first get the moving average over here. So I'm using CryptoPi trend indicator with 200 simple moving average on the weekly time frame. So the idea here is that whenever the 200-week moving average crosses the previous all-time high, that is usually the top of the cycle, of that 4-year cycle. It worked in 2013, it worked in 2018, however in 2022 it was pretty late. So the top, according to Pi cycle, happened on April 5th, 2021. The actual top, according to price action, happened on November 2021, and 200-week moving average had a crossover with the previous all-time high, previous cycle's all-time high on February 7th, 2022. But if we still would have followed this strategy, where we exit on the intersection or the crossover of 200-week moving average with the previous cycle's all-time high, let's check out what would be the gain. Let's say here we identify that price has reached to the support, that is 200-week, and we enter when it bounces back from the support, for example here, and we exit when the 200-week moving average crosses to the previous cycle's all-time high. So what we see here is approximately still 946% of gain. That is not bad, given that it's a very simple indication of how the market moves the price during the 4-year cycle. Now, how can we use this analysis for current cycle? It's all well and good that in past it was able to detect in some cases it was pretty late, but what can we strategize or forecast for the coming cycle? So I have taken two parallel channels here. Let's take it one by one. The first channel is telling us that if the slope of the 200-week moving average remains the same, and here these two lines are, one of them is Pi cycle top, the other one is price action top. If the 200-week moving average remains with the same velocity or maintains the slope, when would we see a top according to the 200-week moving average top indicator? It's somewhere, if this continues to go like this way, it comes around at this point, which is next year, June 2026. Now, if we take another case where Bitcoin can go parabolic, which has happened over here, which has happened over here. So when Bitcoin goes parabolic, it also affects the slope of the 200-week moving average. So here you see that the moving average was going up gently and then it became quite steep. The rise was quite steep. And same thing over here, this was a very short one. And here it was also again steep. Now, if, let's say, for whatever reasons of macroeconomics, there is some QE happening in next month or in 2 months, we might see the price of Bitcoin to start rising up parabolically or make a quite exponential run. But how does that affect the 200-week moving average? It would quite likely also go like that. And when it crosses the previous cycle's all-time high, that would come in the month of October or November. Let's mark it somewhere around this one, which is October, and for the first one, that is September. So that is basically in the 3rd quarter or the beginning of the 4th quarter. Of course, this is all a forecast and we cannot actually predict when would this happen. But what the use of this one is that it helps us to prepare that the 4-year cycle for Bitcoin is about to end. And it's quite likely that Bitcoin will make the top pretty soon, or it has already made the top and it is looking for a reversal in the price action. All right, let's hide this for a while. Okay, I hope this was clear to everyone how we can use Pi cycle, top and bottom indicator, how we can get 200-week moving average, and how we can analyze or hypothesize to identify tops using the 200 moving average. Now, coming to the two bonus indicators, I'm going back to the Bitcoin Magazine Pro website. This one, they are using logarithmic growth curve to forecast the future price of Bitcoin. But we can use this to identify when are the accumulation phases and the distribution phases. According to previous cycle, whenever the price crosses above the red regions, it's quite likely to be distribution phase. Distribution is basically when the reversal happens in the price action. And the opposite is when it crosses below the green bands. That's when the accumulation phase starts. We see that here with every top which has reached, the price goes 2 bands lower in the next cycle. From here, it went to 2 bands lower, which is the orange one here. So it's quite likely that if 2 bands below this orange, that's the yellow one, in this cycle, Bitcoin price might hit the top somewhere in this yellow band. Now, as you progress in time, the price also keeps increasing. So if the Bitcoin top happens next year, June 2026, yeah, 2026, then let's see if it goes to June 2026, somewhere around 200,000, yeah. And when the reversal would happen, wherever the price would be in future, the reversal might take us to the minimum for that cycle, the low of that cycle at around 60,000. That would be still be much higher than previous years all-time high, or not much higher, but very close to it. So it is quite likely that next year's bottom might be somewhere in this range to start accumulating, and it might follow a similar trajectory like such, that it stays here, makes a quick drop by 10-20%, and then it's the bottom, and then the parabolic phase starts again. So the goal here is not to use just one indicator like Pi cycle or 200-week moving average, but to also include something like a logarithmic growth. You can strategize the information from multiple indicators and define how to start accumulating Bitcoin, how to start distributing Bitcoin, in the sense of taking profits or taking a long trade or taking a short trade. The last indicator which I would like to discuss with you is something which I already discussed in one of the previous videos, and that is the percent supply in profit and loss. What we see here are, in the cycle of Bitcoin, how much percentage of Bitcoin is in profit, which is marked with the orange one, and how much is in red. How much is in loss, which is marked with red. Now, this one is mainly used for identifying Bitcoin bottoms, but not the exact bottoms. Again, identifying exact bottom for Bitcoin is quite difficult, but it helps us identify when the accumulation phase of Bitcoin begins. Now, to clean this noise, I would apply a moving average of 14, and we see that whenever the intersection begins, that's a good starting point for accumulation. Over here as well, in the cycle for 2019 and in the last cycle of 2023. If we go further with 30-day moving average, we see it barely touches. So with every cycle, the crossovers are getting far apart from each other. So it's quite possible. So if we use 50, the crossover did not even happen. So the best is perhaps 7 moving average, and whenever we see they are closing the gap between the percentage supply in profit and supply in loss is getting very close to each other, that's the time to start accumulating. And even if there is a drop in the price action, perhaps not to get scared of it, but continue the accumulation if Bitcoin is the asset which one likes to invest in. I know in this video I have talked more about a high time frame and not much about trading, but it's when one does trading, we need to identify what is the long-term trend. If we know that there is a parabolic phase of Bitcoin going to start at this particular crossover of price over 200-week moving average, then it makes more sense to me to look for long trades on lower time frame of 4 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes, rather than looking for short trades. Of course, there will be short trades which will be quite beneficial over here, but overall trend, the amount which I would risk for a long trade in comparison to a short trade, or the flexibility which I will have in my stop loss and my mindset, this will all change if I know what is the long-term trend. Imagine if we knew at this point that pi cycle indicator is giving us that, hey, the top is already in, the asset is overbought, and there is a pretty good sign for reversal, and we would exit and take our profit and then go for a short trade with a defined risk, then this is a very good trade to go for a short. And same goes for when the parabola happens. Of course, if we consider this corona crash, it's difficult to predict something like this, but that is why we have the risk management equation. Yeah, I think that would be all for today. And if you like the content, I would be happy if you subscribe to the channel, engage with the channel by dropping a feedback in the comment section and hitting a like, and do share with your other colleagues who might be interested in this kind of content, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.